Well, hello, everybody. Make sure I get the little number to show me that y'all are watching. And all right, well, welcome in, guys. I'm missing somebody. I don't know where he went. Guys, thanks for coming in. We'll let everybody kind of come in a little bit, and I'll explain to you why you're only seeing my smiling mug. But welcome to Sergeant's Talk TV. Normally, I have a co-host. Um, but it's looking like with the weather lately, Big Mike and them over there having a little bit of interwebs issues. So we're gonna go ahead and we're just gonna run with it, guys, because well, we all know it's the VA. Everybody can bash. Um, so I'll go ahead and say some hellos in here first. And I had seen Joey and Ginger popped in earlier. There is Piggy's Piddles, Semper Fi, and another fellow Marine of Matthew Jess. Um, and he actually admits he likes crayons more than me. Um, Veterans America, welcome in. Hoorah. Lumpy Burke, thank you for coming here. James Hall, and there's T&T Adventures. Hat Creek, another Marine. Looks like the Marines are going to overrun tonight. Maybe that's what we should have done before, right? There's David Moffat. And there's a brother Gypsy Trails Randall. Uh, Dana Mason. And oh, Matthew. Okay, we could I'm gonna see how this goes, guys, before I throw a link up and give a whole help me. I don't know what I'm doing. Um, Mike said if they can get internet, he will be back on later. There's Debbie Drock, Lila. So am I the good, the bad, or the ugly? What's today? Tuesday. I can't keep track anymore. It just depends on the mood. Uh, yeah. There's Grace and Fire. Uh, thank you for coming in. Sure appreciate you. And Lumpy, yeah. So, guys, tonight is talking about the VA, our experience. Big Mike and I both retired. He retired from the Army. I retired from the Marine Corps, and that involved a lot of process over the years of dealing with the VA and that whole medical system. And when you retire, you actually kind of fall into two different medical systems, which that can be kind of fun sometimes. But Lumpy Burke says, I had a 30-year battle with the VA, finally won my case in a hearing last May. Congratulations, brother. That's what we like to hear and see right there. It's sad, guys, but that 30-year battle is not an unheard of, especially if you're an older veteran. Um, I was kind of lucky. I don't know how easy it was when Mike first retired, but there's Anson and Gladys over at Ivy's Family Factotum. Um, it was part of a requirement to actually start your checkout process and get registered with the VA before you could actually even retire. Which the fun story is, hey Deb, um, yeah, right, kind of fun. Said no one ever. Um, so there's Mike and Terry, just letting everybody know their phone signal's cutting in and out, but the Wi-Fi is a no buenos right now. Yeah, so for me, and I'll just kind of kick into it for right now, is it was a requirement prior to me separating and actually getting my retirement package when I retired that I had to go pre-register with a VA. The fun story was they said, well, this is going to fast track you through the VA process. Because anybody that I had talked to up until that point, if you retired or even got out and then decided you wanted to go through the VA, you were looking at a minimum of a 1 year. And that's if you had all your ducks in a row and they accepted it on the first round. It wasn't unheard of for guys to be fighting. I mean, Lumpy was on here and says that it took him 30 years. You know, for my point, it was kind of like I was seeing guys that were going 2-3 years without anything from the VA. And that's just, I don't know. To me, it's crazy. But kind of going back, so I did this whole processing before I retired, and I got all my medical records submitted to them. I had all my medical claims done up and did the physical and did all those types of things. And it wasn't any faster. I think it still took me 6-7 months, which maybe, I guess, if you're looking at it being a year time frame, but it was still 6 or 7 months when they told me when I left that it was like 3 years. So, and Lila, yes, very much. All hurry up and wait at the VA. And I don't know how their codes go in. Like I said, they told me being active duty, if I filed before I got off active service, it was going to give me like front of the line privileges. Yeah, no. I will say the VA has gotten better over the years about especially going back to earlier service, those of you that served, way before, and going back in a lot of the Vietnam era and prior in getting them the, albeit most of the time it's kind of too little too late, but a little something at the end maybe helps out. And, so any veteran, no matter how long you served, I just recommend, hey, go down there. And if you're not in the VA, I'll tell you that a big suggestion before I forget to say it, because I've been thinking about this all day long, is go to your VFW if you don't know where your local VA clinic is, and start talking to some of the vets in there, because they're gonna know, and they're gonna know if there's multiple clinics, because that was, oh, thank you. Yeah, 4 a.m. No, that's not nice. So I'll appreciate you sticking around as long as you can. There's Rainy Ridge. It's go to that VA clinic or go to like a VFW or somewhere that that you can talk to some veterans that are already dealing with the VA and find out what clinic works for you. When I first retired, there was only one clinic that they told me for my hometown area that was available. Come to find out that's not true. And I went there and it was atrocious. It was your typical, if you talk to anybody that's been to the VA and they're like, it's horrible, I don't ever want to go there again, it's just don't waste your time, just pay for it out of pocket, blah blah blah. But I'll be the first to tell you, it's based off the clinic itself. It really is. I've been to, well, I guess 4 different clinics now since I retired, and every clinic was different. The very first one, horrible. I would have rather just self-amputated whatever I was having issues with than go in there. And Mary right here says, yeah, 2 brothers and a dad who were in the VA in Arkansas and had good results. So, and I'll say that my clinic that's closest to me right now, I'm still on the fence with. I got assigned a brand new doctor to the clinic my very first time going in, and he's not even there. So it's, but the second clinic that I went to in Michigan, because when I first retired, I went back to Michigan. The first clinic, horrible. I couldn't get out of there fast enough, but I didn't know. And if you don't know, you don't know. Like, how are you going to go do any more or search another clinic when everything that showed up on a VA website or VA registration went through the main VA clinic? And then I found one that was actually closer to my home, and they all but rolled the red carpet out for me when I got there, which was a night and day difference of, um, the service that I received when I first retired. So, um, David said, I got out after serving my time. They wanted me to re-up, but wouldn't give me the MOS I wanted, and now they disown me. And that is a very common statement right there too, right? Is, well, the VA doesn't care about me. And guys, I'll admit it, and I'll tell you out here that most clinics, that is a very accurate statement. But when you can find a good clinic, you hold on to it. And if it's a little bit further drive, maybe, then make that drive. Because when you find a good clinic, you've done good. And, I found one out of 4 that I've dealt with that I would drive the extra distance to go back to that one. And there's Anson. He said Gladys is in the background. But yeah, I started with the active, and it helped to make sure the paperwork that you needed to do prior to going, because I mean, the VA is no different than any other government entity, guys. There's 17 miles of paperwork that you need to do. Like, there's 4 rainforests that have to be destroyed worth of paperwork before you're allowed to receive your services. And yeah, so Matthew says, unfortunately, it's what you do in your final weeks of getting out that make or break you, and being the smart 20-year-olds we were kind of screws you for life. And it does. Even after me going through the retirement process, there was so many unanswered questions getting out, and not knowing, hey, what is my exact retirement pay going to look like? They couldn't tell me. Basically, and when you ask about, well, what do I expect from the VA, they're like, well, here's the local clinic assigned to the area you're going to according to our system. Go there and have fun. And like, I showed up there when I got home, and they're just like, sure, what can I do you for? And I'm just like, I just retired. I'm supposed to come here for a physical, and there's not a lot of information that you would think should be given when you get ready to retire, or even when you get out. And I think it's even more so. There's even less information when you're just separating and not retiring. And yes, so this is definitely a great point, is get a VSO to help with the disability side, especially recommend a nonprofit. So VSO, what does that mean? Well, it's a veteran service officer. That's your DAV, Disabled American Veterans. That's somebody at the VFW. Or they actually have, and I didn't find out, and it was 10 minutes down the road from my house, that I had a local county veterans organization officer that I could go through. And that's how I actually found the second clinic in Michigan. And she was just right down the road from my house. But there was no information about that before I got out. They're just like, hey, here you are. Go to Battle Creek and good luck. Hope you make it. And Mama Carolyn, yeah, a while ago. Let's see, Lumpy, but I got 10% in 2008, 60 in 2014, 100% in December. I filed back in 91 when I got out. Yeah. And, unfortunately, it's not an uncommon trend. I'm glad, and it does take a lot of patience and a whole lot more persistence. And there's Anson just kind of agreeing that, and Anson and I have had this conversation too about that, even with other vets, is if you go to one clinic and it's horrible, then talk to the guys that are there, because they may know another one, or go back to your VSO, go back to the VFW, find some other veterans in your area, because I guarantee there are other VA clinics that you don't even know about, and maybe they don't. And so then you can kind of go back. I actually just recently, following on Facebook, had seen a fellow Marine, but first of all, he was one of my high school classmates. We graduated together. and he happened to join the Marine Corps probably 6 or 8 months, well, about 6 months, maybe. I think it's less than 6 months after I did. And so he just moved back home. He retired a while ago, was opened a business, did all this stuff. And I just seen a message the other day on Facebook where he was going to the clinic that I recommended. And I was like, oh, dude, thanks. Like, he got me thinking. I was like, it totally blitzed when I seen that he was moving back home, that, hey, you need to make sure to go to this other clinic because they're not going to tell you about it right away. But he obviously had figured it out. Anyone getting out, tell them if it hurts, put it on a claim, period. Yeah, and that's a that is definitely a really good recommendation and suggestion. And you see it a lot when you're in, is all of a sudden it doesn't matter if they did 4 years, 8 years, 10 years, however long they served, you'll see it in the last probably 6 to 8 months. All of a sudden they are what we called sick bay commandos, and they are at medical every single day that they possibly can be, because that's the time, like, you've toughed it out your whole career because you didn't want to get put on a medical discharge type status. And so you just tough it out the whole time. But then right before you're about to get out, you're like, all right, no more time to tough it out. Because if it's in your medical record in any way, shape, or form, they'll be able to, if you get the right doctors, tie it back and make it a service connected for the VA. Thank you for coming in, Trina. You're not late. Lila, how is it possible for us to have homeless prior military service members? Why can't the VA help them? That's a really good question. And the one answer I guess I can give for that is, in my experience of seeing some of the homeless vets, is like, we have a homeless veteran shelter right here in the town that I live in now. And most of them refuse to go to the clinic, whether it's out of pride or certain shelters and clinics, they require, and that's kind of the way our local one is, they'll bring you in, but then they're going to help you get a job. They're going to help you rehabilitate, do whatever it is. But then they expect a payment, kind of a small rent, because it's a nonprofit, for veterans. And they don't want to do that. They would rather just, and others, it's a lot because the VA homes and hospitals are just so packed with other veterans. And there's just not room for them. So, Randall saying the Minneapolis VA is awesome. All right, I'm going to try to scroll through some comments, guys, so bear with me. See, Sir Grace, let me help him with his VA rating. He went from 1 rating to a higher one because of using a well-known nonprofit as, yes. And it does. And at least he's had choose that lifestyle. So, guys, if you haven't figured out already, Anson and I mean, obviously we're close friends, and this dude just reads my mind all the time. So, well, hello, Jeannie. And yeah, and that's another one, guys. I mean, and that's the point of tonight, is just kind of getting some of those things out there. But the treatment is for sure a VA center by VA center, and the personnel that are working there. And hello, Mickey from Critter Creek. Thank you for coming in. It says, my claim to fame is that I was proud of that I rescued, trained the dog that ended up in our VA center, living with the vets full time for support. That is awesome. I know several Marines and a couple of soldiers actually that have service dogs now from, military, their service and disabilities and stuff to the VA. And it's not an easy process, but it is a big change in their life for the better. There's Angie over at our cabin in the woods. Says the VA's come a long way again. Remember, this is government. My veterans get top quality care. So, guys, once again, right here, Angie, she works at a VA clinic, and she's very supportive of us veterans. And I imagine that if we were to go to her clinic, we would all receive amazing care. But if you go to another clinic, not everybody's going to take that care and attention that I know Angie is doing um, towards us. So a lot of times, and as hard as it is, especially for uh, us veterans, and having probably most of us have a very common trait, and that's a short fuse and a little temper. Um, and uh, let's see what they say. There are three departments in the VA: Veterans Health Administration, Veteran Benefit, and National Cemetery. Okay. Um, and welcome in Shiloh Acres. So there's a fellow Michigander there. And Saginaw and Ann Arbor VA hospitals pointed my uncle's father to excellent clinics. Thank goodness. Yes. And I know that the one in Ann Arbor, that is a huge VA hospital in Michigan. And most of the major procedures that get done are there. Um, I got into one that was in Wyoming, which is the south edge of Grand Rapids, which was way better. If any of you are in a Michigan area and they say, "Hey, we're going to send you to the Battle Creek, VA," just run the other way. Just say no, send me to Wyoming, um, because it's not good. Um, and here's another good point. So I've heard a lot of veterans having this issue. Is not having the paper trail. They made sure when I retired that I had multiple copies of everything, and without that, it probably would have been way worse. But you have to have multiple copies yourself because the VA is bound through it's a government entity and system. They're going to lose something some way somehow. Um, just have to prove everything to the government. That's the problem. Yeah, right. Southern Blessed Home said, yes, I hate military paperwork. Oh, awesome. So Mickey's dog he trained was Sarge, and he's still making that is awesome. Um, Trying to read a minute, guys. Yeah, and this right here, Matthew Jess, no information was given to me, and I had a guy from my platoon give me a heads up at least. That's not uncommon. I kind of talked about that earlier. Was um, they just they've got what they want, and when you say you're not willing to give them more time, they're just see ya. Um, um, And yes, the VA app is that is getting to be. They're doing a lot of updates on it lately. I've noticed. That is a very good resource to go in. And there's another one. I think it's called. I'm gonna look at my phone a minute, guys, because I'm gonna tell you exactly. Vets app. VETS APP. Um, they have one for the actual VA, but then the Vets app is another good resource that will give you kind of contact information of, hey, I need to file a claim or I need to do whatever it is. It's basically it's not a VA sanctioned, but it's an app that drives off the VA to give you hopefully answers to your questions or what direction to go. What do they say? When you retire from the National Guard, you don't send pay until you turn 60. Then it's 5 pages of paperwork to apply for military pay. Oh, wow. I think I've heard that before about, and I was having a conversation the other night with somebody, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. I thought there was one of them that you had to wait till you were, and now that you mentioned that, I think it was somebody telling me retiring from the National Guard um, makes things even more difficult. Um, I'd like to know. Yeah, and the math is crazy on it. In my experience, was how you get the different ratings of, well, why is this condition a 10%? This one's a 20, this one's a 50. It's all on how it's worded in the how it's submitted to them, and it's all about words and terminology. Um, let's see. See y'all talking to one another. That's great because I can only talk and read so much. And yeah, so going back to why is there homeless veterans? A lot of them are refused. Yeah, okay. Um, and you know what? There is red. Thinking of red. Remember everyone deployed. Um, I'm actually hoping at some point, guys, as Mike and I develop this channel a little bit more, I do have a very informational. He retired out of the Army, but he started off in the Marine Corps. A buddy of mine that's still back in Georgia that deals with a lot of like veterans hiring and stuff. And I'm hoping to bring him up someday. And I should have tried to call him before this and been like, hey, by the way, I'm on YouTube. You should come up too. So um, I'll take the 300 from a tombstone. About to get ready for bed. Good luck for those trying to get into that system. All right, yeah, and guys, I know you guys were up early, so get some rest for sure. I'm probably so far behind. You're probably already gone. Yeah, when Mike says supportive vet wives, life, Glendon are the main reason some of us get help. There may be a disconnect with the system, and yeah, and it is very frustrating if you're trying to do it yourself, especially as a veteran, because to me, like my frustration, especially when I went into that first VA clinic, and they basically looked at me and they're like, "Well, what do you want me to do for you?" And I'm like, I don't know, maybe your job. Like you're here, it's the Veterans Administration. Like you're supposed to be taking care of veterans. I'm here as a veteran. Take care of me. And they just kind of look at you like you're a unicorn and they're like, "Well, what do you mean I have to work for this money they're paying me?" Um it's pretty disgusting to be honest with you. And I told the first 3 doctors they assigned me there that I didn't care for them, and if I never seen them again, and I never did. I seen them one time, and it was it. I got reassigned different doctors, but I was not very shy in telling them that I'm not there to do their job, and they need to learn to do theirs. And maybe if they would have passed medical school, they could have actually done their job. And I guess that wasn't the right thing to say, but I got a different doctor, but it didn't make it any better until I changed clinics. Um, let's see. Oh yeah. Um, okay, so let's see. No off topic. I'm just wondering if there's anyone here in Michigan can point me in the direction of donating our 2012 Dodge Journey. Really hate to scrap her. Um, I would say, and I'm sure people. Oh, I guess I'm at the bottom of the comments. Okay, so I'm pretty close to the bottom, guys. Holy moly, I caught up. You guys are gonna throw me a loop now, aren't you? Um, I would say the first place to go look, or where I would, is where the local VFW is. Um, you've got to be really careful, guys, with donating to any kind of veteran organization because a lot of these companies will put in saying they're veteran supporting. But then when you look at their numbers for donations and stuff like that, a very small number of or a small percentage of what you're donating actually goes to veterans. most of it goes to their fees and the CEO and all this other stuff. So, you know, I always go down and recommend, like, go to a VFW. It's always full of veterans, and find the commander of that VFW station and talk to them and be like, hey, here's my situation, because they might know a local vet that you can do it, or a company that you can do it as a, like, a tax write-off, and then it gets donated to a direct veteran. And talking about, yes, not all vets have a support team. I'm so confused when talking to them, so adopt me. Um, when they say, remember when the VA told me to shut up, they wanted to hear from Sir Grace. Wrong thing to tell me. I don't shut up, don't mess with caregivers, just say, oh, exactly. I don't, Tara most of the time doesn't go into it unless it's like a specialty type thing. And I'm like, hey, I need you to come in and basically, like, nurse term this thing to me, because she can take their big fancy words and make it marine proof for me. But I always make sure to get a printout of my appointment and bring it back to her, so that she knows what we talked about and what all the numbers and all that nurse type stuff. But yeah, when you're going in as a caregiver, and guys, I don't want you to go in and be rude and be disrespectful, but if you're not getting the service or the treatment that you feel yourself or the veteran that you're taking in there is getting, then speak up, because it's the only way it can change. And if that person you're directly talking to doesn't get to, guess what? Everybody in the VA has a boss. So you just go find the next person in line. Like, there's always a chain of command, and find that next one until you get the answers, and make them give you answers. You start raising enough fuss, you're going to start getting answers. And there we go. Glenda's adopting you, Mickey. There. Um, so it says, so hello, out and about with Dave and Daisy. Do research on your primary care physician. Mine wasn't a doctor, he was a physician assistant, and he had been fired and delicensed by another state. Look them up by using public records. Yes, and that's not an uncommon practice that I've experienced in the clinics at the VA. Is, you know, you think, hey, I'm going to see the doctor, but then come to find out they're just a physician's assistant, which is still a big feat. But why are they just you know? And then you find out, hey, they've been fired by another state, or I know, like, right now, I don't even have a primary care assigned to me, because the one I got assigned was brand new to the clinic. He no longer is working there because he could go somewhere else and make more money. And so now it's all like telehealth visits, which is an option also, guys, is the telehealth. You know, if you don't want to make, like, for me, the main clinic for Arkansas is Little Rock. Well, that's like a 3.5 hour drive. And I've done it once, and once was more than enough. I'm not doing it again. Like, I have one 25 minutes for me. But they can't cover all the specialties. And that'll bring me into a subject I'll bring up in a second. I want to catch up on the comments. And yes, and that's why, guys, I recommend a VFW, because you can go down there, and, you know, most towns or within a few towns of you is going to have a VFW somewhere. And talking to the other veterans that have already been through it or are going through it is going to be your best resource, like, without a doubt. Thanks, Anson. I don't need your help there, Sasquatch. Yep. See, David's got number two. Well, thank you for coming in, and appreciate you being here and supporting everybody. Okay. And thank you, Anson, because I know that you had been talking about this before too. Charity Navigator will tell you 100% of where your money goes and the rating of that charity. So Shiloh, that might be a thing to look into too. I wish I could remember, because I know that there's actually a pretty big veterans organization up in northern Michigan, that they have like a whole hunting lodge and all this stuff, but I can't remember the name, what they called it. And you have patient advocates. Yep. went to a class. Basically says just don't go home and kill anybody. And that is a typical. That's a very typical statement for anybody that didn't stay until retirement. Um, yes, and talking to other vets if you're in there. Um, like I said, they'll know whether it's a good clinic, and even if there might be just a group of doctors. I know a couple of the clinics I went into, they had like different teams. So you got like red team, blue team, green team, and then you would get assigned a team. So it would be this group of doctors in there, if it's a large enough clinic. But maybe like red team isn't any good. You need to make sure you're getting on blue team. And so if you're not liking your care, well, there's always veterans in the waiting room. Go talk to them and they'll be able to tell you, well, hey, my doctor's awesome, but I'm on, green team and not red team. And well, welcome in, Dennis Green. And yep, squeaky wheel gets the grease. And American Legion. And guys, I've actually, for whatever reason, probably because of this channel and talking about this channel, so it's always listening. All of a sudden, like most of my ads and commercials are about the American Legion, and they are another good source. Um, Okay, yep, and they're talking about, and they are, so like the VFW obviously is more for like the combat vets, right? It's veterans of foreign wars. So you have to have served in combat to go to a VFW. But they have the American Legion. I know there's the DAV, the Disabled American Veterans. Um, oh, wow. Well, so then David Moffat's like, no, they all point me in the wrong direction. You just must be running into the wrong people. And I'll just say two words: New York. Um, is it the NMVC, North Michigan Veterans Coalition? That might be it, Anson. Because they have a huge like hunting preserve, and they do a lot of things that is a veteran directed. Um, I was told about it a couple different times, but then I never like jumped onto it. That's not totally untrue either. Oh, Mike Terry putting in there vehiclesforvets.org. That would definitely be another good source. And yeah, once again, just reiterating, change providers. If the one provider, like, we're not mandated to stay with one provider, they're just going to give you whoever's the soonest available. Honestly, they don't really care as long as they're getting their amount of patients coming through. Um, and yeah, so if you don't have the like Tricare or anything, and that was something that I was going to go into a little bit. So uh, there's Big Mike right there. Another option is care in the community, and yeah, I think it's called community care, or maybe it is actually care in the community. So that is another big option, and I've utilized that option several times. If your local VA clinic does not have the means, to see you for a certain condition, but the main VA clinic is too far of a drive for you. So, like in my case, where if I need to be seen for something that my local clinic can't do, instead of driving 3.5 hours one way to Little Rock, I can just call, and when they want to schedule that appointment, and I'm going to be like, all right, here's the deal. I'm not driving 3.5 hours. Like, that's too far for me to travel. Um, and they will be like, okay, we're going to send you over to the community care coordinator. And then their job, and typically in my experience, they get a hold of you kind of within a week. And their job is to find you something they'll call you, they'll kind of do a quick interview of, hey, where do you live? How far are you willing to drive? That type of thing. And then most of the time it's going to involve a civilian provider in the local area, but it'll be 100% covered by the VA. Um, so that is a really big one, and I know that's pretty new within the last probably 4 years, really. Um, at least in my experience, being able to do the care in the community, because there actually is there's a deadline. So if you need an appointment and you can't get it within, I'm going to say 90 days, guys, but don't quote me on this exact one. If you can't receive treatment at your local clinic within 90 days, that also gives you justification to submit for care in the community and go see a civilian doctor. Um, and so I find training dog service companion for vets specific for the veteran needs. I just wish our VA treated the same way. And we all wish the VA would treat us. I mean, the odd part is like they only have a job because of us veterans. I guess that's the frustration and the confusing part to me is their job. Like we're the only reason they have a job, and yet they make it feel like they're going out of their way to give us special treatment. No, you're just supposed to treat us like. Um, the American Legion actually have free lawyers in DC that will fight your appeals for you. Nice. Um, Yeah, and then the DAV worked for Randall over there. I know. I think my initial claim when I got out was through the DAV, because that's what they had locally where I retired at. And but once I got back home and I found out I had a direct VA liaison, I switched it over to the VA. Burn pits. There's another big claim going on. Yeah, we're members to family of the VFA American Legion. Fraternal Order of Eagles, the FOE, Moose and Elks. It's a Michigan thing, I guess. It must be because I know all of them and I know right where they're at back home. So, um, and so Frugal Des or Deb says, David, have you checked with the Syracuse VA? Well, hello, Wade. Glad you could make it in. No worries for being late, buddy. Um, Okay, so community cares is the term. Plus, all VA appointments are reimbursed for travel. You can do it straight from the app. Um, and yes, so if you are having to drive to a VA clinic, and honestly, it doesn't even matter if it's only 20 minutes, you still submit through the app. And I know that there's people, if you don't have app or smartphone access or something, the employees don't necessarily like to do it. And I've made them do it a few different times because I refuse to get on here and do it that way. But they can still do it at your clinic because the way it used to work was when you checked out of your appointment, then you did a travel claim. But now they want everything to be on one of these dumb things. And says they're the ones who would not follow the paper trail and the one my brother goes to. Gotcha. Okay. I suppose I'll allow you to make a head call, but you better make it quick. Are you back yet, Corporal? So maybe the best choice, since so many are so negative on the VA, maybe if people start talking, the positives may change some of the outcomes. Yes, and I think it's just one of those. You know, it's all based on the clinic, and that's what I try to remember. A lot of people is if you don't like the clinic you're in, then go to another clinic. But then you need to follow up. Like I filed actual complaints, I guess, or whatever, at my previous VA clinic because their care and service was horrible. And but just complaining about it, guys, doesn't do a lot either. Like, I was always taught and told, especially in the Marine Corps, was don't present me with a problem if you don't have some sort of a solution, right? So when you get on and you fill out a survey, don't just click through it. Like there's always a spot that you need to give them some specific input. And I'm not saying that every single time, but if enough people are putting in positive input towards things, about, hey, maybe if we did this or maybe we did that. And I think there is a negative connotation a lot. With Angie making this, is there's an automatic negativity thinking about the VA. And guys, honestly, at least in the last 10 years, if not 15, the VA system is a night and day difference. I know a lot of you in here that have obviously got out way before I did, you know, I guess like even Lumpy Burke, where, it's been 30 some years, because when they got out, 30 years ago, there wasn't these services that we have now. The VA has really, really stepped up their game in getting veterans that should have. Sorry, I was getting attacked by a furry monster named Charlie. Um, I know there's a lot of like Vietnam vets, right? Because I've dealt with a few of them that they got nothing when they came back from Vietnam, absolutely nothing. And then they went and they worked for another 20, 30 years dealing with ailments from their military service. But even now, like if they go in, and that's why I try to tell anybody, no matter how long your length of service, if you served and you have a DD 214, go to the VA clinic. If the specific doctor you get assigned first doesn't work, then get assigned another one. But use that clinic, because they are giving us as veterans so many more benefits than what they were getting 10, 15, 20 years ago. Um, and if we're not using it, it's going to be one of those that we're going to lose it. And I think that that's a very big and true statement. Um, so Okay, not true. Been a nurse for 26 years. I have a job either way. Choose to be caring for our vets. That is and Angie, I applaud you, and you know that I've told you this, before, and it's I maybe wording it as the clinic itself is horrible, but the individual is working it. That individual nursing care, and honestly, guys, it doesn't even matter if it's the VA or a regular hospital. We've all been to hospitals and clinics that have horrible staff, and you get horrible treatment. It might be a good hospital, but if that staff member is having a bad day or whatever, and so there's a lot of people that, there's a lot of nurses. My wife is a perfect example of will spend extra hours at work because she's that dedicated to her patients. Um, yeah, frustrated as we taxpayers pay for service y'all ain't getting. And a lot of it, honestly, I think it's not so much like, I think for some of them, at least what I've experienced, is it's not so much that they're not getting a service, they're just not getting it in a timely manner. But there's only so many clinics also. And when you're getting more and more veterans every single day as people are getting out of the military, their workload's going up, but their employees in the buildings and staff and facilities are not increasing. When they say I actually got to go visit the VA in Saginaw with them, and he had an appointment. Okay. Oh yeah, that's way up in there. So Debbie says her granddaughter is a surgical tech at the VA hospital in Memphis. Nice. All night long. Just keep going. So Shiloh, they were thinking something with solar flares to knock out their internet. It's at the main hub issue. Yes. All right. Well, thank you, Anson, and tell Gladys and the family we said hello. Thanks for being in here, brother. A couple Navy vets over there. And there is Mr. Charles. Glad to see you in here. And okay. So there's a good and a bad to VA health. It's really not different than a local hospital in general. VA is government, which why complaints are more, but trust me, I don't like a university hospital. Yes, because like I said, I've been to local hospitals that don't even have a VA affiliation, and they're horrible. I'd rather just lay there and take it than go to that hospital. So, I mean, obviously for this point of the conversation, we're emphasizing experiences in the VA, and I've had some good ones, guys. Don't get me wrong. Um, that last clinic I was in Michigan was amazing. Uh, So says Paul Lawrence has a book, Veterans Benefits for You on Amazon. Great book. Okay. Um, there's Eric and Missy. There, Tilted K. Ooh, I'm excited to hear about some house changes. Um, Uncle Lee was in the towers during Vietnam. They named it Tote Towers. Wow. Um, how much time did people actually spend on base down here or garrison? I don't know. Um, I'm not sure how to answer. All right. Yeah. It's not the healthcare workers, it's the red tape they and the vets have to maneuver through. And I think that's the biggest frustration in everybody that I've talked to is the red tape. It's you have to have certain forms, but they can't always tell you what that form is or how. And if you miss one line on a form, well, that resets the whole process. And it's just, I guess it's difficult, even though like we all came from military and we're used to being everything covered and aligned and all the I's dotted and the T's crossed and all those types of things. But, you know, it seems like we should get a little bit of an exception because most of us weren't medical while we were in, so we don't understand how the process works. Um, and then that's where it gets because when you spend hours trying to dig up information that you barely remember, or have records of. And then they're like, well, you forgot this one little column. There's not a date in there. And you have to start the whole process over. You're like, you got to be kidding me. Charles says, thank all the veterans in here. Otherwise, for service, we do appreciate you more than you know. Absolutely, Charles. Well said. Wade says, I know a lot of heroes in the world, and the way the VA treat you guys is unforgivable. And that's why I changed governor here in Montana to help our vets. Um, and yeah, Matthew just been in there talking about him and I have had conversations before. Like he did his 4 years and was pretty much on a deployment the entire time. Um, and told you I was gonna give you a hack. Love you, Mike. You're in trouble. Haha. Just kidding. Love you guys. Angie, I wouldn't expect it any different. I appreciate you. And I love that you're in here, Angie, and having that perspective, from somebody who's working in the VA. And it's proof that each clinic and each individual person in a clinic, you're giving that prime example as to, if you're not satisfied with one, then go to another. If you were paying for a doctor and you didn't like that doctor, would you keep paying for him? No, you would go find another doctor. So you could do the same thing with the VA. It might take you a little longer to get your next appointment, but um, yes, and I kind of talking about that. You probably said it before but yeah, they're not creating more clinics or units or anything like that. Not that I'm knowing of. I've seen a few pop up here and there. Um, that there's becoming more veterans, right? People getting out of the military, but there's not any more facilities, there's not any more doctors, staff, nurses, or anything. So thank you, Lumpy. I'm doing my best. You all are actually helping me more than you know because I'm able to just roll this conversation with comments, which is awesome. And okay, I'll take it. I'll do okay for a staff sergeant. As long as they keep paying me every month. Military health is different than VA health. It's a beast to learn. Oh, well, and so that does kind of bring up another thing was, um, so kind of a difference too that like Mike and I have with, because we retired, we also still have Tricare. So if there was something that we couldn't get at the VA clinic, or we just didn't want to go to the VA clinic, we still have the option of using our Tricare insurance, finding a Tricare provider, or just seeing a civilian doctor. Um, Now, most, like if you did your 4 years or whatever, like that's kind of only an option for retirees, but it does give us another option. And if any of you are trying to help somebody out, um, that is retired, that could be another option for them. Is like, hey, what is your Tricare? And then I know once you hit 62, 65, whatever it is, when you qualify for Medicare, then you get onto the Medicare, and then the Tricare like kicks in whatever Medicare doesn't, and makes it all much gooder, I guess. I don't know. I'm not old enough to find out, but I'll let you know when I get there. Um, if our government wasn't for us, yeah. I'll throw it up there, but I don't know about that one, buddy. All right, Randall, thank you, and glad that you are enjoying Blue Mountain Lake. So, all right, good plan, Mike. Thank you. I see, even from behind the scenes and a little bit of cell phone service, he can keep me on track. Said next week we're going to talk about those left behind, all about the families of the service members, guys. Like we've said from the beginning, this channel isn't just about Mike and I. It's about all of the veterans in any way, shape, or form, and not just the veterans themselves. Because as Glenda and Sir Grace are the prime example, and Angie at our cabin in the woods, the caregivers, the families of these veterans that are trying to help them through the process. Or trying to process on their own because their veteran they didn't come home. And that's the ultimate sacrifice that every single one of us signed up for, and we agreed to it. And luckily those of us who made it home did, but more importantly was we lost brothers and sisters over there that didn't get to come home to their families and have to deal with these, what would be silly mundane issues, some of these families. So it'll be really exciting, for a lot of you to come back, and we want to see and hear your experiences, from the family, the survivor standpoint of it. But it was a test from Mike to see if I can hold under the pressure. Okay, wow. I appreciate everything that all the veterans who are in here. The irritation is just more that I can't stand, so gotta go. Have a wonderful and blessed evening. All right, James Hall, I appreciate it, and just one breath at a time, brother. Um, um, yeah, standard healthcare is not much better, anyways. Thank goodness for Tricare. Then now, what kind of Tricare you have? Tricare for life is different than Prime. Yes, and it is. So, kind of going into that is, I have Tricare Standard. I think that's what it's called now, right? Because I'm not close enough to a military installation to use the active duty military hospital. Tricare Prime is typically where you're close enough to use an active duty military facility. And then the Tricare for Life is actually for those that are of retirement age. So once you're on Medicare, it switches to Tricare for Life. And I actually had to learn that after I was out at one of my first civilian doctors I went to, because I went there and then they kept saying, well, the insurance isn't coming in. Well, they were used to only dealing with the elderly Tricare patients. So it was always Tricare for Life. Well, I'm not old enough for Tricare for Life. And so when I went in and I was talking to her, about, well, how did you submit it? She goes, well, I went Tricare for Life. And I was like, whoa, no, you got to run it as the Tricare standard. Or, in a case, if you're in an area that's close enough, then you can be on Prime. But where I've lived, I couldn't qualify for Prime anyways. Thank you, Mama Carolyn, for coming in. We will see you, and welcome back, Charles. Um, yeah, so guys, I'm probably gonna end it. Let me see. So Tamara Smith, they're building a new VA clinic here in Jacksonville, North Carolina. Probably problem is they don't have doctors to staff the existing smaller clinic, much less the new expanded one. And that's so I'm very familiar with Jacksonville. And yeah, the amount of people that are there, how anything could be short staffed is amazing. But I think once again, it falls into who wants to work and who didn't. Um, and well, you just didn't look hard enough, Matthew. Um, so, all right, guys. Yeah, I know there's still some comments, but I definitely want to thank every one of you for uh, coming in tonight. And, unfortunately, hey, this is a technology world, right? And when technology doesn't work, then we just adapt and overcome because, hey, that's what we do. Um, But I know for Mike and I both, we appreciate you guys. Continue sharing this out. Get this channel out there to other veterans and for other information, because we want them to be part of these same conversations that we're having. Because we're learning things, but we want you all to learn things, and we want to share. That's the greatest part about a veteran community, is being able to share with other veterans. And when we say something, you all understand what we're talking about without us spending more time explaining all the acronyms and everything else that's going there. And then those of you that didn't serve, we appreciate, your support as well, like any support of the military. Um, so next week gonna be about the families, and so be looking out. There should be a thumbnail coming out probably Sunday of giving the description and everything of what next week's. But every Tuesday, 8 p.m. is going to be me and or Big Mike, depending on the interwebs issues. Um, Here, just giving you the information we know and experiences and sharing with all of you. So thank you guys. We appreciate you. And always remember, guys, it doesn't matter where they're at and where you're at and what you're doing. Take a minute, go think of that. Shake their hand, tell them thank you, and make their day because it means a lot. So, all right, guys, I'm going to sign off. We'll see you next week. Bye now.